Welcome back to The Watch. And Oz, are you a fan of Tomb Raider?
I am a fan of boobs, which she has.
I thought you were going to say you're a fan of two things.
Are you making a reference to my teeth?
No, her guns.
Oh, okay.
Great guns in Tomb Raider.
Oh, okay. More like Womb Raider. What? That's weird. I'm saying that I'm going to go into it.
So, Tomb Raider, classic female-led franchise, very popular, but it's problematic now, Oz. It's full of colonialism, and colonialism is bad.
Is it? I don't think
Good
it is.
question, Oz. Good question.
I think, building the modern world and ending slavery was generally a good thing.
Generally a good thing.
Take
Technological advancement, especially medical advancement.
food, technology.
Now, we're not saying taking people's land and death and all that stuff is bad. Thing is, though, the course of human history is, and by the way, the native tribes did this as well, trying to expand, grow, and everything like that. And what's interesting, the thing that a lot of people don't want to say, is that there were times when, the British would come to a new land and show, look at all the things that we can offer, advanced technology, stuff like that, and the native people like, I'm on board. This is awesome. What?
I'm just thinking they go to Africa and they show them technology. And then, people are like, I'm on board. Yes, you are. Get on the ship.
Well, a lot of the... there was that, but also there were a lot of the African nations practicing slavery at the time who says, oh, you want to buy our products? Here's some people.
Yeah. Basically every civilization to ever exist has practiced a form of slavery.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We ended it.
Vikings and the Irish and everything, like I think white slaves a lot, okay?
Yeah, right.
But the thing is, though, right, one of the things that people do not acknowledge about colonialism, right, is that throughout the, is it the 18th century, the expansion era, right, one country was ultimately going to win, okay, and kind of colonize, conquer the world. I would like the activists to try and say how evil and bad the British Empire was, to point out any other nation that was powerful at the time that they would have rathered win that race of colonization and world domination. Yeah. Do you think they would want Spain or Italy or Germany or Japan or China?
I read the Portuguese weren't too bad, though. I read they weren't too bad. They were nowhere near as bad as the Spanish, and the Dutch.
They were doing some dodgy things in Japan.
The Portuguese?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, to be fair, the Portuguese, the Japanese just weren't having
Thing is, though, which country out of all the ones mentioned gave up slavery willingly?
Or fought to end it as well?
Fought to end it.
That would be the Brits.
Yeah. We are insanely lucky in the modern world that it was Britain that won that race. Yep. Okay? If Germany won,
or worse.
Oh,
French people.
Oh, well, that would be the absolute worst. But I mean, Italy, and you get Mussolini later on down the track.
Well, they already had their chance with the bloody Rome.
There's that as well.
One.
Right? I mean, the fact that the country that won was the one that helped abolish slavery, we are so damn lucky.
Yep.
Okay. But they won't acknowledge that. All right. All colonization is evil and bad. It's like, you do know a lot of the technologies that you're enjoying and comforts of life come directly from
Yeah.
There was a recent news thing that happened here in Australia where someone had a sign on their front lawn saying, this house is built on stolen land. And so a group of Aboriginal people came to the house and demanded that she hand it over. And she wouldn't let them even in the house to talk about it.
Oof. That's horrible racist.
Horrible, you have all these people that are about reparations, except when it comes for them.
Yep.
When it comes for them giving up their stuff, all the people that is yes, we should invite all these people in, but not into my house, not into my home or community or town, right? Anyway, so this all relates to Tomb Raider somehow. How do you think this relates to Tomb Raider, Oz?
Well, she's British.
She is British.
She And that's about as much as
Well, one of the things that they accuse colonialism is stealing cultures of other people.
the fact that it's a tomb and it's all lying around there.
So Britain, they like a lot of British explorers actually did end up excavating and discovering, ancient finds and stuff, and finders keepers. Like I thought the notion of discovery and finding treasure, but people say it belongs to the cultural heritage of the location, and there might be an argument for it. But the thing is, though, because a lot of these British explorers did discover, they ended up helping preserve and protect a lot of these artifacts that would have been destroyed either by war or the conflicts locally. Or,
like look at what ISIS was doing to the cultural sites in Afghanistan.
Going out of their way to destroy them.
Exactly. So if the British swooped in, we got Tits McGee here to run in and get the stuff.
Like, they call that cultural appropriation now.
To save a culture.
To help preserve a culture's history, right? And not only save it, but also respect it and kind of celebrate and teach about it.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, so Tomb Raider's more seditious because she's getting it for just glory and money. And it's like, so? It's a character. By the way, Tomb Raider's fictional, people. I mean, they're like... Who cares?
Women don't really care about old stuff like that, do they? That's the most unrealistic part.
Interesting list of characters underneath. Are they trying to say that these are going to be the replacement characters for Tomb Raider?
Nice and diverse. I guess she'll be the contentious villain.
Yeah, one of them just looks a little overweight.
Yeah.
Probably not the most best physicality for action, jumping and raiding tombs.
She's a tank character, and as you can see, the natives hit her a lot because she's a bigger target. She's pulling an arrow out of her back right now.
Oh. So this is from the Tomb Raider Chronicles. Tomb Raider series to escape its colonial past. British adventurer Lara Croft will transition from being a raider of tombs to a seeker of truth as Evil Hat Productions and Crystal Dynamics seek to redefine the Tomb Raider series in order to escape a history wounded by colonialism, according to an excerpt from the official Tomb Raider Shadows of Truth RPG rulebook. That's supposedly where it's coming from. One of the fun things about Tomb Raider was the treasure hunt. And, like the idea that, there's buried treasure in the past that it's forgotten. No one would ever be able to find it unless you have this treasure hunter going after it. And when they find it, one of the rewards of finding it was being able to keep it.
Oh.
Because that's the whole thing about buried treasure and stuff. That's the notion, that's the whole theme around Tomb Raider. And it's fun. Find the buried treasure, get rich glory and all that stuff.
Treasure.
Okay?
I knew that Tomb Raider had a really cool chest in it.
But that is stealing, Oz, because even though this buried treasure is hidden, no one knows where it is, no one will probably find it without this treasure hunter finding it or anything like that. It belongs to who? It raises an interesting question. Does the cultural country have claim on artifacts of the past if they have done nothing to actually find it or preserve it or... And the current government, right? Because this actually gets really messy. The, citizens of a country, right? What if a lot of them have moved into the country and then they don't have an actual heretical, heritage, bloodline to the ancestors of that thing? Does it belong to the actual blood descendant ancestors or just the people that are currently living on the land, right? And then people usually say, that's the blood descendants and everything. And it's it gets really messy when you go back to the past as to, there was a lot of Greeks living in Egypt in the past. Cleopatra was Greek, right? Does Egyptian artifacts belong to only people living in Egypt? There's a lot of, moving around and mixing throughout the past. It just gets a bit messy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I can kind of understand, though, the argument that, the location, having the artifacts stay in the location for the cultural heritage and stuff like that. But the whole treasure seeking thing, if these things would never have been found if not for the treasure hunter finding it, right? is there a claim of ownership that they can put on it for them being the ones that actually not only found it, but spent resources to find them as well? Probably like in Lara Croft, risking her life to find some of this stuff.
Maybe whoever calls dibs first.
You reckon?
Dibs.
What do you guys think in the comments below about that aspect to it?
Dibs.
But the thing is, though, in terms of a game, it doesn't matter. Let it be a tomb raiding, treasure hunting, glory seeking heroine, right?
Yeah.
And it's fun. It's like, I doubt anyone playing Tomb Raider, when they're doing this, are thinking, yeah, I think we should colonize people again. I don't think that's what they're getting from it.
I mean, when I look at Tomb Raider, never mind.
Raiding, as depicted in the original Tomb Raider games and stories, involves going to ancient tombs and historical sites of different civilizations and acquiring artifacts.
Acquiring. So not stealing.
Well, I mean, no one, if they're buried, no one knows where they are. No one has ownership over it. Like, okay. But that's wrong, you know.
For some reason. Just colonialism.
It operates on the assumption of finders keepers. It grants the raiders with the means and the drive to claim ownership of artifacts regardless of whether they have any historical or cultural claim to the treasures.
I love that they have a problem with finders keepers where if the finder doesn't keep it, then who the hell does?
Well, they have to hand it over to the country, meaning the government usually.
Why do that? Why go through the effort?
Like, what about like sunken wrecks? Okay.
Huh.
It's not on anyone's land if it's on international waters or anything like that. Should it still be handed over to the country where it comes from?
There was a case of that recently. Did you hear about it?
No, I haven't.
Shipwreck off the coast of Spain.
Okay.
A bunch of lots of treasure under the sea. So it was a Spanish ship from the colonial era. A certain country in the Middle East tried to claim it. But then no one wanted to ask, what was the gold for?
And here's the other thing, right? I think it's a little unfair where if you have these individuals, even like organizations that spend thousands, sometimes millions of money in research and going out to try and find ancient artifacts or anything like that, right? They do all the work to find it. Then for other people to come and say, no, that belongs to us. We did none of the work, but you should hand it over. It's like, hang on, you did none of the work to find it, and you were not going to do any of the work or investment to find it in the first place. Basically mean you didn't give a crap about this, right? And now you're saying you deserve it? That strikes me as actually a little wrong. It's like, no, investment, time, effort is to actually go out of your way to find something gives a sense of ownership and finders keepers if they're the ones doing the work to get it.
But the whole thing of being like, oh, you put in all that work for that? No, that's mine. I own that now. That's just the left's playbook in general, isn't it?
It's very familiar, isn't it?
They're doing colonialism.
I mean, there's that whole thing about, there are people who work hard and they end up, successful farms and resources and stuff like that. And the people that don't work suddenly feel that they're being robbed. And I deserve to have equal as you and your wealth redistributed.
Don't forget, hard work is white supremacy.
We're not the ones saying that, though.
That's a museum that said that.
A museum said it.
Yeah.
Was it the Smithsonian or
I'm pretty sure it was, yeah.
But yeah, they actually, like,
in America.
Arriving on time was white supremacy.
Being kind and courteous.
That was insane. Oh,
being reasonable.
That's so racist what they was trying to say in stereotyping. It's crazy. But it's just interesting that there's that connection between redistribution here with the whole, people who work hard to find it, and then people who don't work didn't raise a single friggin' finger now saying that belongs to us. It's like, I almost feel like if you had no investment to try and find or care about your history and actually, you might end up losing a bit of ownership over it, okay?
Damn.
Yeah,
Yeah. It should be their own people, and then when they don't,
well, it's look. This goes into some tricky discussions about who owns land and stuff like that. It's like, hang on, your ancestors, you didn't do anything to earn it, right? But you're saying your ancestors owned it, but not everything, right? Because they didn't have the population to occupy all the land. There were vast swaths of land that were just unused, but now it's stolen. Okay.
And I love the whole thing of they were nomadic, okay, so it was all their land. Well, I mean, colonialism is kind of like being nomadic.
Is it?
Yeah, because nomadic is moving from one place to the other to live,
Yeah.
and we kind of moved there to live, and then, there you go, nomadic. Anyway,
It's funny. There's another like interesting comparison where they'll say they're nomadic. So because they were nomadic, they needed to use. They owned the land that they only used probably a couple of days or a couple of years over a 20-year period, right? But it's still theirs, even though they use it occasionally. Yet if homeowners own more than one home and they're not living in the other home, that deserves to be taken away from them because they're not occupying that homos. Like there's a lot of contradicting, hypocritical standards that come out. Have you been hearing a trend of the squatters in the homes lately and stuff? Yeah. And they're trying to take away homeowners' rights. But then the argument about back in the day when it was nomadic, right? It was perfectly fine for these nomadic tribes to own crazy amounts of land that they barely ever used. Anyway,
I hate commies so much. They're not human.
So the actual finders keepers thing, not only is it still held up in the modern day in certain instances, all right, I actually think there is I'm not fully on board, even though I've acknowledged there's cultural heritage stuff and does get a little grey. But I think there's a more complex discussion to be had than just saying finders keepers is immoral. It's like, I think about the work effort put into finding some of this stuff, right?
Like if you found a cool stick.
Yeah.
That's not someone else's.
Belongs to the trios.
No,
steal it from
the tree dropped it.
Okay, so later games released in the franchise have started the work of addressing this by having Lara Croft acknowledge her past mistakes and try to understand and show respect for the cultures and communities she comes into contact with. She has also worked to reform raider culture and raise awareness of her peers. She's an activist now, as
Gayest crap I've ever heard.
Like, people just want a fun game of her diving into tombs, finding treasure, and risking the danger and stuff. But no, we need to talk about the politics.
I can't. This right here. Yeah. She has also worked to reform raider culture and raise awareness of her peers. I can't stand this sort of talking and thinking these buzzwords. It feels like acid on my brain. I can't stand it.
Lara no longer decorates her mantles with mythic artifacts.
What does she do with a?
Well, usually doing that is actually a celebration of those culture when you put them on display. But as a raider, she prioritizes seeking out truth. Much of this game is inspired by her humanity, struggle with heroism, and her tenacity. We believe that all three aspects are important. Politics ruins games. Well, once upon a time it was just a fun game of an adventurer looking for treasure, and now it's like we are going to look at the humanity and struggle with heroism. We believe all the and it just becomes this boring introspectional, politically driven woke discussion that most people do not give a crap about. All right, but that's going to be the focus now, it seems like. Are important components in creating a game that celebrates history and culture while acknowledging the respect and work required to live in a world wounded by colonialism.
Literally created by colonialism. Wounded?
Throw away all the comforts of your life that come from, and by the way, that includes freedom and democracy in a large measure. Yeah. It's like Britain fought against slavery, gave it up. If it wasn't for them, I literally, we should be thanking God it was Britain that won. And I'm not excusing the bad things that they did. Right? I am acknowledging that if one of these other countries won the conquering of the world, basically, the colonization race, yeah, the world would be a much worse place. If it was like Germany or Italy or Japan or China, it's like, holy.
Just look at Canada for an example. There you go. That's what happens when the French win. Excuse me, doctor, I'm a bit depressed. Have you considered suicide? Real truth. That actually happens.
It's happening in Canada. Canada was just awful, right? Okay, in this game, we seek to continue in that work alongside Crystal Dynamics, but they are just ruining this character. They're like, Tomb Raider's dead, and they're just going to drive away all the fans.
Yeah.
Loved it. Yeah. And it's, but hey, by the way, Oz, it's not woke.
It's not?
It's not woke.
It's
Film
feeling pretty
companies
woke.
explicitly sharing their woke agenda, anti-colonialism and all that stuff, explicit woke talking points, but it's not woke.
It's not woke.
Yeah.
No.
And all this stuff isn't woke. Rings of Power, it's not woke, guys. It was just bad.
How can it be woke? It has a woman as the main.
So Tomb Raider is just dying slow and regular death. And it's a pity because I actually enjoyed that first Tomb Raider remake game. Yeah, I thought it was really fun.
At least they're keeping my favourite aspect of the game, the jiggle physics.
No, they're reducing those.
Do they have to ruin everything?
They do, Oz. They do. Stay on watch.